INEOS out to defend Port's yellow jersey before Geraint Thomas crashes, leaving Port isolated in the finale, having to defend attacks. This is the Critérium du Dauphiné Stage 8, the last stage and a nasty mountain stage, difficult to control, 148 kilometers long. But the big climb of the day was the Col du Jouplan, which comes after a long valley, nearly 12 kilometers at 8.5%, before a technical descent and a drag up to Léchère. A reminder of the GC standings going into the stage. Port 17 seconds ahead of Lutsenko. Astana have two riders that they can try something with Vingegaard 38 seconds behind. But Port's teammate Thomas is in third, 29 seconds back, with Kelderman, Haig, Lopez just behind him knocking on the door. And a really large and dangerous breakaway went up the road. Difficult for INEOS to control such a large break. Had Mark Padun in it, had Patrick Konrad only 2 minutes 50 back on GC. Wilco Kelderman's teammate, he has Niels Pollitt pulling all day in the valleys for him. Meanwhile, INEOS just controlling that gap in the early parts of the stage, although Movistar and Israel Start-Up Nation had helped them initially. The strongest climbers in that break though were Jonas, Vingegaard, Konrad and Mark Padun. But really there weren't any GC fireworks early at all. We didn't miss anything before coverage started. Port had a mechanical and I was thinking, oh no, here we go again. But it was a long valley and INEOS were controlling it. Kwiatkowski setting his own pace, so Port got back pretty comfortably. The break gets to the base of the Col du Jouplan and immediately from the base splits apart, with Mark Padun setting an infernal pace. He's got Guillaume Martin and Patrick Konrad, no slouches, and they're already coming off the wheel. This is with 10.8 Ks to go in the climb, 27.5 Ks left in the stage. Padun drops them straight off the wheel, the winner of yesterday's stage. He started the climb with a 2-minute 30 gap of the peloton, and he will extend that. He will put more time into the peloton, who admittedly weren't going at a high pace initially, because INEOS don't have to. You can see the peloton bunched up. Ben Hermans has just attacked for Israel Start-Up Nation. Quintana's about to follow him. And INEOS just had to play defense for this whole stage. They got Port in the yellow jersey. They know Lutsenko is not going to attack on this climb because he's probably worried about getting dropped by Richie Porte. Meanwhile, Padun puts about a minute into Konrad and Guillaume Martin. Kruijswijk tries to bridge to Hermans and Quintana. He eventually goes past them, Stefan Kruijswijk, not that far behind on GC. And yet Jumbo-Visma don't drop back Jonas Vingegaard, who's up the road. He's pulling Patrick Konrad, despite the fact that it was immediately obvious that there was 0% chance Vingegaard and Konrad were catching Mark Padun, who was absolutely flying. Meanwhile, Kwiatkowski brings back Nairo Quintana. You can see the INEOS train in full force. They've got Geraint Thomas, as well as Carlos Rodriguez, the young Spaniard, to help Richie Porte on this climb. And really the only team that would try and threaten them on the climb would be Movistar, but they tried that yesterday and Port absolutely smashed Lopez in the last kilometre. Astana will just be hoping to try something on the descent with Lutsenko and Vingegaard. Movistar admittedly did try to pull with Verona with 3.9 Ks to go. Valverde did a pull as well. They bring back Stefan Kruijswijk, who will eventually be dropped. Kuss was dropped as well, so not a good day for Jumbo-Visma. But after Verona and Valverde pulled, there was no one to take it up for Movistar. INEOS took it over once again, setting their pace before Lopez thought, oh, I may as well try something with 900 metres to go. Perhaps he was trying to get a little bit of a gap before the descent. He got brought back by Geraint, then Haig countered, and finally we're seeing the INEOS team whittle down. Now Geraint Thomas, as it levels out at the end of the Col du Jouplan, he's trying to bring back Jack Haig, and he does a fantastic job of that. Haig was trying to get a gap before the descent started, and maybe when he went into the break initially, Padun was supposed to be a satellite rider for Haig, and he would have been effective as that, but he's so far ahead of everybody. He's about 2 minutes 50 ahead of the peloton, so he pretty much had the stage win locked up when he crested the Col du Jouplan and began a technical descent. In the GC group, gaps already opened up from the top of the descent. Vingegaard hit it in a group with Haig, Thomas and Lutsenko. They've gapped Richie Porte. Looks really good for Astana, except Richie Porte gets a little bit lucky. He gets some help from Ben O'Connor and David Guru, both 8th and 10th on GC. They decide to close the gap for the yellow jersey. Meanwhile, Geraint Thomas, who was stuck in a tricky situation, would he drop back? Maybe he was thinking about dropping back at this point where he's off the back of Lutsenko going into this hairpin. It seems he brakes a lot harder through this corner than Haig, Vingegaard, and he washes out his front wheel and crashes. Fortunately, Thomas wasn't hurt. He apparently just road rash afterwards. He gets straight back up, but it looked like his ability to help Port in the rest of the stage and his position in third on GC was pretty much done. We'll stick with Mark Padun and his stage win now, which was pretty obvious from the minute he dropped Konrad and Guillaume Martin. Then we'll circle back to the GC guys. But what an incredible last 2 days from Mark Padun in the Critérium du Dauphiné, being able to celebrate with 500 metres to go. No one saw this coming, and we will surely be seeing Marc Padun at the Tour de France for Bahrain victorious. Whether he goes for GC or not, I'm not sure. His time trialing doesn't look very good, but from the break you set a quicker time on the hardest climb of the race solo as compared to the peloton, and only Ulrich and Pantani have been quicker than you on the Jeu plan. He's certainly a man capable of winning a Tour de France stage. But going back to the GC group, this is almost a nightmare scenario for Porte. He's got Astana with 2 riders, both close on GC, and Izagirre is already going up the road, reminding you of the GC positions. Porte only 17 seconds ahead of Lutsenko and 38 seconds ahead of Izagirre. Thomas is not in the group to try and pull things back for him, and yet this turns into a complete shambles for Astana and BORA hansgrohe. BORA have got Konrad up the road, by the way, still with Vingegaard. They don't call him back, even though he had no chance for the stage win, so he doesn't go back to this group to at least maintain the gap to Geraint Thomas. And it's actually Ben O'Connor who's the most active in this group trying to attack. Lopez doesn't attack once, Kelderman doesn't attack once, and not only that, other riders who are not even on the podium in GC close gaps for Richie Porte. The only main attack Porte had to close was Izagirre finally going, but then we're thinking, well, the next attack will be a difficult one to bring back. Porte can't bring back everything. Haig attacks, and yet Kelderman marks him and sits on him, neutralizes Haig's attack, perhaps trying to protect his third on GC. Assuming that Thomas doesn't come back, then O'Connor attacks, and Lutsenko goes to his wheel and marks O'Connor, and O'Connor sits up. So a lot of things go right for Richie Porte despite being in a very difficult situation, and one would think with 3 to 4 Ks to go, there'd be the wolves at the door trying to take that yellow jersey off him until Geraint Thomas, Undertaker, comes back from the dead, comes back to the GC group after crashing. An heroic performance from Thomas, and he's going to do what Lopez did for Valverde the other day and shut this GC group down. Apart from O'Connor, he was incredibly strong, just got extended by Asia Duar for like 3 extra years, but he's a minute behind on GC. INEOS are fine with him going up the road, and Thomas prevents any further attacks from this GC group, locking up Richie Porte's Critérium du Dauphiné win, and the GC kind of peters out with a whimper. But great to see Richie Porte winning GC after losing it on the final day back in 2017 to Fuglsang. It looked like it might have happened today, but in my view, teams like BORA and Astana didn't really play their cards right in the final 20 minutes. But here's the final GC standings. 0 changes to the order of the top 9 riders. I didn't expect that before today's stage. And despite Porte winning, it was interesting to hear what he had to say after this stage.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm under no illusions as to what my job is at the Tour.
Does it surprise you to hear Porte saying that? I asked the question the other day, but I want to ask it again now that he's actually won the Dauphiné, and he looked like the best climber out of the GC contenders. If you want to catch my coverage of the Tour de Suisse, I don't have the highlight rights, unfortunately, but we'll be covering every stage on the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast. If you've liked all these Criterium du Dauphiné videos across the last week, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'll have videos like this every day for the Tour de France, starting at the end of this month, and then the Vuelta, etc. after that. But until then, ciao.